Hi, my name is Steve Dziadik, and I'm here talking about a book that I wrote called How's My Driving? Why Every Other Driver Doesn't Seem to Have a Clue. And the idea in the book and its title is not to demean anybody, but to help everybody understand that there's more to driving than just putting the key in and going. One of the things that I cover in the book, and I think it's really, really important, is automobile insurance. I worked for an automobile insurance company for a number of years, and I wrote policies for them. And one of the things that I figured out quite early on was the fact that people have no clue what they're buying in insurance. I was born in the state of Oregon and grew up, finished high school, went into the United States Navy, got an education in nuclear power, and served in the United States Navy for about 6 years. And then I got out and I went into operate a nuclear power plant. I talk about my driving experiences, starting out from my very youngest driving experiences, which were, I literally can remember driving, sitting in my father's lap at the age of 4 or so, steering the car as we're driving down the road. And my mother is having a hemorrhage, literally, because she doesn't think that should be happening. There is a list of 10 what I call Steve's theorems. I believe that virtually no one gets up in the morning, brushes their teeth, showers, and gets dressed with the idea in their mind that they are going to be the worst driver on the road that day. Number 2 is, I believe that the first person that the operator should be, drive the vehicle must be concerned about is their own safety. Number 3, I believe that getting from point A to point B does not necessarily make me or any other person on the road a safe driver. About, on average, every year, 6,000 teenagers get into a car and leave home and never come back. And that's about 1 every hour and 28 minutes, which is disgusting when you think about it. I mean, it's just, again, to lose a teenager that you've raised from an infant, I can't even imagine. People don't think that a bad thing can happen to them in a car. They just don't. We had a horrible car crash. My wife and I nearly died. She especially. She, for the first 3 days, they just assumed she was going to die. She was 7 months pregnant. When she finally gained consciousness about 3 days later, she wanted that baby to be alive. And it, in fact, did not make it. It was killed basically instantly. I did carry that inside of me, and I got to witness my wife's remorse and loss and grieving over that unborn child. And I can tell you, a man can't experience that the way a woman can, but it's just something that lives with you. But what it did is it piqued my awareness to the point where I was probably the safest driver on the road. My wife fortunately lived. We both were on crutches for 6 months afterwards. It was a terrifically horrible experience to go through. Approximately 9 years after this occurred, I was driving to work late one night with 2 people in the car with me, and we were having a conversation. And I looked to answer a question. The guy that was sitting next to me asked me a question. I looked at him. The next thing I remember was waking up face down in the middle of the highway with many broken ribs. I had 4 vertebrae fused together in my neck. Again, I should have died. It's by the grace of God that I didn't. So both of those things are the reason that I wrote this book and why I want people to understand, you don't think it'll ever happen to you? I didn't either. My book is written to 2 audiences. The primary audience is the parents of teen drivers, because they're going to put their kid in the car with some amount of training or whatever, and they're going to tell them, drive safely. I'm not quite sure if they totally understand what that means. And it's written also from a perspective of a teenager's viewpoint, because a large portion of what I write about is things that happened when I was a teenager. And so they should be able to identify with that. The other thing that's in there is I give them what I call my defensive driving recipe. And if you're doing it, there's no time for being on your phone, there's no time for talking, there's no time for doing anything except operating your car safely and defensively. In fact, what I do at the end is I synopsize everything for you and give you a kind of a 8-step procedure to think about what you're doing. And driving safely can be achieved. My hope and desire is that it affects somebody positively when they read it, maybe in a positive way to prevent a crash.